The biggest man in that prison blocked Mike Tyson's path and said, "You eat when I say you eat." What happened in the next 30 seconds left every inmate in that cafeteria completely frozen. It was just another lunch in cell block D. But nothing about that day would ever be ordinary again. If you love untold Mike Tyson prison stories, hit that subscribe button right now. We drop new ones every single day. It was a Tuesday afternoon in the Indiana Youth Center, sometime in the early months of 1993. The prison cafeteria was the one place where every inmate in the facility came together. It did not matter which cell block you were from or how long you had been inside. Twice a day, every man in that building walked through the same doors, picked up the same tray, and sat down in the same loud, crowded room. For most of them, it was the only part of the day that felt almost human. Mike Tyson had been inside for almost a year by that point. He was 26 years old, and he had already learned the unspoken rules of prison life better than most men who had been locked up for a decade. Keep your head down. Do not look for trouble. Do not let trouble find you. Walk your own path and let every other man walk his. That was the code Mike had been living by, and up until that Tuesday afternoon, it had been working. The cafeteria was packed the way it always was at noon. The noise was constant, metal trays scraping against metal tables, voices bouncing off concrete walls, the distant sound of guards communicating through their radios near the entrance. Mike took his tray from the stack at the beginning of the line and moved forward slowly, the way everyone did. There was no reason to rush. There was nowhere to be. That was when he first noticed the man standing near the middle of the cafeteria line. His name was Doyle. Nobody in that prison used his first name, and most of them would not have been able to tell you what it was. Everyone called him by the name the inmates had given him sometime during his first week inside. They called him the Wall. He was 6 feet and 7 inches tall. He weighed somewhere between 320 and 340 pounds, depending on the week, and every single pound of that weight was the kind that came from years of obsessive physical discipline. His arms were the size of most men's legs. His shoulders made the corridor seem smaller when he walked through it. He had been transferred to the Indiana Youth Center from a facility in another state 8 weeks earlier. And in those 8 weeks, he had made it very clear to every man inside that he intended to run things the way he had run them at his previous location. Doyle had a way of establishing power that was different from the way most men did it inside. He did not come at people directly at first. He watched. He studied. He identified the moment when a man was at his most exposed, when he was tired, when he was distracted, when he was somewhere he could not easily walk away from. And that was when Doyle made his move. It was calculated. It was patient. And up until that Tuesday afternoon, it had worked on every single person he had tried it on. Mike was 3 people back in the cafeteria line when Doyle stepped directly into his path. The 2 men ahead of Mike immediately stepped to the side without a word. Nobody told them to. Nobody had to. Everyone in that cafeteria line had seen what happened to the last person who stayed in Doyle's way, and not one of them was interested in repeating that experience. Within seconds, there was nothing between Mike Tyson and Doyle but about 4 feet of open space and attention so thick that the noise in the cafeteria began to die down the way noise always dies down when every person in a room suddenly understands that something significant is about to happen. Doyle looked down at Mike the way a man looks at something he has already decided he owns. He said it slowly and clearly, making sure every man within 20 feet could hear every word. "You eat when I say you eat." The cafeteria went quiet. Not completely. There were still sounds coming from the far end of the room where people had not yet noticed what was happening. But in that section, in that line, the silence was absolute. Men who had been mid-conversation stopped talking. Men who had been looking at their food looked up. The guards near the entrance shifted their weight slightly but did not move. Everyone was waiting. Mike Tyson did not step back. He did not look away. He did not say a single word. He stood exactly where he had been standing, and he looked up at Doyle with an expression that every person who was there that day would later struggle to describe accurately. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was something much quieter and much more dangerous than either of those things. It was the expression of a man who has been in enough truly serious situations to know exactly what kind of situation this was, and who has made his decision before the other person has even finished speaking. The seconds that followed felt much longer than they actually were. Doyle took one step forward. He was close enough now that the size difference between the two men was impossible to ignore. He was half a foot taller and nearly 100 pounds heavier, and he carried himself with the absolute certainty of a man who had never met anyone willing to meet him where he stood. He had never met Mike Tyson before. What happened in those next few seconds was described differently by every inmate who witnessed it. Because the human eye is not built to process certain things at the speed they actually occur. Some of the men standing in that cafeteria line would later say there was one moment. Others would say there were two. A few would say they did not see anything happen at all, only that Doyle was standing, and then Doyle was not standing, and the space where he had been was suddenly just empty air. What every single one of them agreed on was the sound. A short, sharp sound that cut through the remaining noise in the cafeteria the way a single word cuts through a conversation. And then the sound of something very large hitting the floor. Doyle sat against the base of the serving counter with his back against the metal and his eyes open but unfocused, breathing in the careful, deliberate way a person breathes when their body is trying to remember how to do it correctly. He was conscious. He was not seriously injured, but he was not standing and he was not speaking. And for the first time since his arrival at the Indiana Youth Center, he was not in control of a single thing in that room. Mike Tyson picked up his tray from the counter where he had set it down. He moved to an open spot at the nearest table and sat down and began to eat. The cafeteria stayed quiet for another few seconds. Then, from somewhere near the back of the room, a single person started to clap slow and steady, one set of hands, then another, then several more, until the sound moved through the room like something that had been waiting a long time to be released. The guards moved in quickly after that, radios up, voices firm, asking questions that nobody in that room was particularly interested in answering honestly. The story that came back to the administration was simple and consistent across every inmate who gave a statement. Doyle had slipped. The floor near the serving counter was wet. It was an accident. Nobody had seen anything else. Doyle was examined by the medical staff and returned to general population the following day. He walked the corridors and sat in the cafeteria and moved through the daily routine of prison life exactly the way he had before. But something had changed, and every person inside those walls felt it, even if they could not name it precisely. Doyle no longer stopped in the middle of rooms. He no longer positioned himself in doorways. He no longer spoke in the slow, certain voice of a man who expects the world to rearrange itself around him. Mike Tyson finished his lunch that Tuesday afternoon, returned his tray, and walked back to his cell. He did not speak about what happened. He did not acknowledge it when other inmates brought it up. As far as Mike was concerned, it was a Tuesday. Lunch had happened, and now it was over. But for everyone else inside that facility, it was the day the entire balance of power shifted in a single moment, in a single room, over something as simple as a place in a cafeteria line. The story moved through the prison the way all important stories move in closed places. Fast, and with a kind of weight that makes people speak in lower voices when they tell it. Because what had happened was not really about lunch. It was never about lunch. It was about something much older and much simpler than that. It was about two men in a small space and one question that every closed community eventually has to answer. And on that Tuesday afternoon in the Indiana Youth Center, in the middle of a loud, crowded cafeteria that went suddenly and completely silent, that question got its answer. There is a version of that story that got bigger every time someone told it. By the end of the week, some inmates were saying the whole thing had lasted 10 seconds. By the end of the month, others were saying Doyle had never walked the same way again. The truth, as it usually does, lived somewhere quieter than the legend. What actually happened was simple. A man tried to take something that was not his to take. The man he tried to take it from had spent his entire life learning what to do in exactly that kind of moment. And when the moment came, there was nothing complicated about it. There was only the decision and the result and the silence that followed. Mike Tyson did not become a legend in that cafeteria because of what he did. He became a legend because of how little it seemed to cost him. He picked up his tray, he sat down, he ate his lunch. That was the part nobody could explain and nobody could forget. If this story hit different, you already know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we drop new Mike Tyson prison stories every single day. Every one of them is the kind of story that never made the news, never showed up in any documentary, and never got told the way it deserves to be told. The comment section is open. Drop your thoughts below and tell us what you think Mike was feeling in that moment when Doyle stepped into his path. We read every single one. See you in the next one.